Welcome to Echo Ekoji. Today's episode is a little different. For the past 2 years, we've had the privilege of holding space for our temple community, our Ekoji Sangha, and guests from across the wider BCA. They've shared their stories, their challenges, and how the Dharma continues to shape their lives, both in ordinary moments and extraordinary ones as well.
Today, we turn the microphone toward ourselves. We'll reflect on our own journeys, how we each came to Jodo Shinshu, what we've learned over time, and what Echo Ekoji has taught us about community, gratitude, and humility. We will also look toward the future of the podcast, our own paths, and the Sanghas we call home.
Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking this path with us, whether you're tuning in for the first time or have been with us since the beginning. Joe, we're going to start with you this time.
Okay.
When you look back on these last 2 years, what's the first moment that rises to the surface for you?
To be honest with you, I think that's quite easy for me. And it goes back to the very first podcast that we recorded, and it was with Michael Huff. And about 2 or 3 minutes into the podcast, it dawned on me, this is what I want to do. I want to hear people's stories. And Michael has a fascinating story. And it just kept unfolding that day. So I will always remember Michael's podcast interview. How about you?
So for me, I love the editing process, Joe. When you are recording, it's easy to miss the golden nuggets because you're thinking about your next line. But when you're editing, you are hanging on every word and audible pause. So you hear everything.
Love it. Do you remember how you felt sitting down to record our very first episode?
Well, first, let me say that the time has flown by. My recollection is that we were a twinge nervous, but also curious and eager to see what happens.
Lots of nerves that day. I had no idea how it would go. I'd never done anything like that. I'm still nervous.
So, Joe, what's a small moment, not a big one, from one of our recordings that you know you'll never forget?
Well, this probably isn't the one that you'll think about, but for me, that small moment was when we clicked on for the medical doctor Matt Dubrava's interview, and he showed up in a Pizza Hut with a Presbyterian minister and a Jewish rabbi. And although there was lots of background noise, they were there because they could not record on the naval ship or in a naval installation. And I just loved the way that the three of them out on this aircraft carrier when they were deployed had come together and were sharing their various traditions and finding the commonalities. So, Andrea, was there a moment during an interview when you thought, I needed to hear that today?
Yes, a truce conversation comes to mind. So that was an evening interview. It was conducted after a long, deflating day for me. And I distinctly recall how refreshing her perspective on the Dharma was. And it truly instantly lifted my mood. And I still remember that feeling. Joe, is there a story or a comment from a guest that touched your heart in a way that you did not expect?
I took something from every single interview. I cherish each one of them. I'm grateful to have been a part of each one of them. But I think the story that really touched my heart was Reverend Melissa Opal's. I knew of her. I'd actually heard her speak once before, but I really didn't know her story. And the way that she expressed herself, not just about her story, but what she had learned and how she wanted to pass that along and how it might inform her work as a Jodo Shinshu minister was really touching.
Absolutely.
Did any guest ever say anything that just stopped us both in our tracks?
Indeed. Ken and Nori have a distinct way of stating the obvious. And their interviews, though, are always chart toppers.
Yeah.
I know something is controversial if you, Joe, suggest edits. And I think we made one or two to their podcast, but those will be for our ears only.
I would say probably the same podcast, but the honesty was a reflection on who we are becoming as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists all across this country and what it will mean to be or to be involved in the Americanization of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism and truly welcoming everybody into our Sanghas.
Yes, it's a pivotal point. What did you learn about yourself through hosting this podcast?
Well, you may not know this, the viewers don't know anything probably about my professional background, but I taught in a high school government class, history classroom for 30 years. And then I was involved in 7 years of working with Gates Foundation grants for international schools across the United States. And then I started a different kind of business that extended from about 2009 until the early 2020s. So I've been out of the classroom for a long time now, and I wasn't sure how I would perform inside of this new digital element, this new classroom. And I think I convinced myself that old dogs can learn new tricks. And I really appreciated the fact that you were there not only to ask me to become part of this, but also to encourage me. So, Andrea, how did listening to so many Sangha members and teachers change your understanding of your own Buddhist path?
So, my path was shaped by the perseverance and uplifting perspectives of our guests. Anne Stagner comes to mind. She's such a thoughtful educator. Everything she said was informative to me. Her journey with all religions is very uplifting to me. I've said it before that I just love religion. I think Anne and I have that in common. I could also see so much of my childhood in Reverend Opal's interview as well. So, in short, it was the reflection that our guests indirectly offered me that has been so beneficial.
I like that a lot.
Joe, was there something you discovered about your own voice or presence that surprised you?
Well, having gone through the pandemic and then gone through the fire at the Seattle Temple, the last 6 years, really, 5.5 years at the very minimum, have been sort of tumultuous in terms of having a Sangha, having a, a, a voice that you could hear week after week. And I think what I discovered here was that we have a voice. We are part of that Sangha, and our Sangha does extend for you and me now, coast to coast. So I was pleased that my voice was part of that discussion.
Indeed.
Which teaching? Interdependence, impermanence, taking refuge, living a life of gratitude, or something else became more personal for you through this project?
So, hands down, impermanence was the initial intrigue that drew me into Buddhism, but it has been gratitude that has fostered my endearment for the practice, and all of our guests model gratitude well. What did this podcast teach us about listening, not just hearing, but truly listening?
Well, thanks to you, I didn't have to do any editing. But during the podcast, I tried to listen intently. And then when we went back and re-listened to, after you had edited, we all went back and revisited the interview. The deep listening came into play. And I remember Reverend Castro, uh, even before this, when Margaret and I began to attend the Seattle Temple on a regular basis back in 2014, December. It was Reverend Castro that kept reminding us to keep listening. Even if you heard something a second or third time, listen, because you're never the same person. And I wasn't the same person. I changed between the time we conducted the interview and then when I listened to it a second time.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that.
Where did you see interdependence show up most clearly in our Echo Ekoji journey?
So, as you know, my life is brimming with responsibility. So, I really had to trust from day one that you would show up and do your part, and the same would be true for our guests. This podcast is rooted in cooperation and collaboration, which I believe are facets of interdependence.
For those people who are viewing this, you need to know that Andrea and I have never actually met in person. I found Ekoji during the pandemic. I started attending some of the Sunday services, and then we ended up in a breakout room in a BCA national meeting that was conducted via Zoom. And I listened to Andrea's story about how she found Ekoji. And evidently, she listened to something that I said. And the next thing I knew, she was asking me to be a co host on this podcast.
What did this podcast reveal about the meaning of Sangha for you?
Well, I'll go back again to the beginning of the pandemic. We were all struggling to figure out how to share the Dharma now that we couldn't meet in person. And Seattle was one of the first, I believe, that started Zooming their services. But then I found that I had so much extra time because I wasn't going anywhere. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to have more contact with real people. If it wasn't in person, then via some digital format. And that's when I found Ekoji. But I also found Reverend Ann and Reverend Kathy at the Ontario Boise Temple. They were conducting a twice monthly conversation. I became part of that. And then I became part of Reverend Ken Tanaka's effort later on, where he is, like Ekoji, trying to build a worldwide Sangha. And all of a sudden, I found myself in these new arenas, these new venues. And so for me now, the meaning of Sangha isn't limited to my dearest Dharma friends in Seattle. It extends to Ekoji, it extends to White River, it extends to Ontario, Boise, it extends to Tokyo, extends to all those countries that are represented when Reverend Tanaka conducts his classes.
That's beautiful.
Andrea, what did you discover about Ekoji or the wider BCA community through these conversations?
That all roads lead to Koji. Now, I recognize that sounds Koji centric,
Mhm.
but because of this experience, I can clearly see how our founding minister, Reverend Suji, touched so many people's lives. And many of our guests revealed connections to Koji in that sense.
I've just recently started reading his book. I believe somebody, I forget who it was, whether it's Reverend Rye or somebody within the Ekoji family mentioned it. I went to my bookshelf, I found it again and started reading it, and it is well worth revisiting
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's on my bookshelf as well. So, where in these conversations did you see kindness show up?
everywhere. Every single one of these conversations had some element of kindness, of the way they have received a kind comment or an action from somebody else or something that they may have done as a selfless act of dana that was in fact kindness. And all through it, the Dalai Lama's voice was ringing in my ear because when asked about his religion, he likes to say, "My religion is kindness."
Mm, beautiful.
How did hosting this podcast together shape our friendship or deepen our understanding of one another?
So I'm very grateful to have had the chance to work with someone who's so smart and so well versed, Joe. I love your passion for life, and it has truly been a pleasure to co host this podcast with you for 2 years. Your encouragement as I juggle an enormous load has meant the most to me, though. So I would say we are proof that friendship can quickly blossom in the fertile soil of the Dharma.
Yeah, I would echo that. Again, your willingness to bring me aboard, your encouragement, your sense of responsibility, not just to the podcast, but to Ekoji. Doing this because it will help share the Dharma with a wider crowd inside the Ekoji family, but also beyond that. Um, Someday we're going to meet up. We will find ourselves in the same place, and we'll enjoy that as well.
Joe, what quality or perspective do we rely on each other for during this project?
I think every time we got together, it was new. What quality every time there was a refreshing um, sense of, boy, isn't this fun? A little scary at times, but isn't this fun? And I see myself as a lifelong learner. And I like to call myself an old man, but a young Buddhist. So I see this path that I'm on with you and others as a voyage of discovery, not just about Buddhism, but about myself that will go on until I draw my last breath. And I find that comforting and exciting at the same time.
Oh, that is.
When you imagine the future of Echo Ekoji, whether it continues, changes, pauses, what gives you hope?
So, Echo Ekoji was created during the height of the pandemic. Rich and Molly co hosted, and I edited. So, I've been involved with it since its inception. It really was our first attempt to step outside of the norms of Ekoji. We had minimal to no ministerial support or encouragement. I think the chance that we took paid off because we have captured what it looks like to live a Dharma centric life. The wisdom and inspiration in these interviews is profound. This podcast was a pleasure to be a part of, but also a gift. So even if there's never another episode, the archives are evergreen and the lived experiences of our guests will carry on.
Well, we'll see what the future holds for us. I agree with you about the gift that we've been given here and the fact that everybody who came aboard as an interviewee expressed a sense of gratitude that we would ask them. And they would not only be able to share their story, but that they found people wanted to hear it.
Mm. What gratitude are you carrying with you from this experience?
Andrea, I'm grateful for this experience. I'm grateful that people who came and shared their time with us told us that it meant something to be asked, to be able to share their story, to find out that other people might want to hear their story, their perspective. That's something that I will take forward as well. We always end with the same question, but I want to ask you to tell people how it is first that you found Ekoji, what brought you through the door and kept you coming back,
Mm.
and then in 2025, December, what does Ekoji mean to you?
Okay. So I had no intention of ever becoming Buddhist. Like that was nowhere on my radar. I was raised Catholic. I had no problem, as I mentioned, with any religions, no trauma, nothing like that. So my daughter was assigned a comparative religion assignment. Despite having thousands of friends, she could find no one to attend these services with her. So we started at a Jewish synagogue down in DC, and then we went on to a mosque. And at both of those places, I sensed the community, or what we would call Sangha, and felt something, a longing inside of me. And I wondered to myself, do they know how lucky they are to have this? But at the same time, I also recognize the limitations. I would never be welcomed in either of those communities for a variety of reasons. And so when we walked through the doors of Ekoji, our last stop, it was all of that. We were completely embraced, completely welcomed. I felt refreshed leaving. I had new tools, I call them, to work with. And we got into the car in the parking lot, and I looked at my daughter and I said, "This is gonna sound crazy. I am coming back." And she goes, "I'm coming with you." And then one by one, the girls all started coming with me. But when I became president of the temple, they stopped coming. So that's how I landed at Ekoji, Joe. Do you want to share how you found us?
Well, I think there was a discussion that I was a part of with people in Seattle, and we began talking about the twists and turns and future of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in this country. And somebody said that Ekoji had a little different take on Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, and how they conducted their services and other activities. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I visited, I found you online. Uh, I went to the Sunday services, and I could hear and I feel the difference as well. And I'll just say that one of the things I'm grateful for people I've never met. Ken and Nori, I know because they were part of that founding group. I don't know all of the other people, but along with Reverend Tsuji, they had a vision that in DC, where people come and go, it's perhaps more of a transient community than you might find in communities on the West Coast, more people coming and going. They wanted a temple that was truly going to welcome everybody as they were as they came through the door. And that has meant a great deal to me. Andrea, as we close, what does Ekoji mean to you?
Ekoji is a place, both virtual and physical, where the Dharma thrives.
And for me, Ekoji means that I have a family, I have Dharma friends in Fairfax Station, Virginia, and beyond. So Echo Ekoji has always been less about two co-hosts and more about Ekoji's commitment to share the Dharma and cultivate a Sangha that extends beyond any single location, past, present, and emerging. It has been a space where voices come together, where people who practice, people who seek, people who are simply curious about the Buddha's teachings can speak openly about the Dharma and their lives.
Through this podcast, we've tried to lift up the perspectives of lay practitioners, ministers, teachers, and scholars so that others might hear how Jodo Shinshu lives in real lives and real moments. If these conversations have resonated with you, we invite you to connect more deeply, whether by visiting Ekoji, joining an online service, or becoming involved in whatever way makes sense for you. Our doors and our hearts remain open, and we welcome everyone as they are.
If you're interested in supporting Ekoji, we welcome you as a full associate or virtual member of the temple. The Buddha taught that all things are interconnected and ever changing. That includes the Sanghas we belong to, the people who lead us, and the voices who host our conversations. Whether this podcast pauses, continues, or transforms, we carry forward the lessons we've received about kindness, compassion, listening, and living a life of gratitude.
Thank you to everyone who has supported us, shared their stories, or simply tuned in. May our lives continue to intersect in Dharma and friendship.
Andrew and I would like to thank each of the following people for appearing on Echo Ekoji over the past 2 years. Ken and Nori Nakamura, Brant Maya Horio, Brant Horio a second time as he talked with us about AI and how it could be used to create and share the Dharma. Michael Huff, True Vo, Rob Fike, Molly Kurumoto, Jimmy Major, Ricky Malone, Nick Karen, Emily Ihara, Professor Ann Stegnar, Wyatt Spage, Dr. Matt Dubrava, Bishop Marvin Harada, Reverend Ken Tanaka, Reverend Melissa Opal, Reverend Kurt Rye, Reverend Laverne Amori, Medical Doctor Kemi Nakabayashi, our musicologist from Seattle, and the Reverend Emeritus Don Castro, who taught us a little different take on the Nembutsu. Andrea, would you like to lead us in a closing Nembutsu?
Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida Buddha.
Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida Buddha.
Namo Amida Buddha. Namanda. Namanda.